After a pleasant chat and goodbye to the people of the Tarawa, and to Mr. and Mrs. Jardine, I again weighed anchor and stood across for Thursday Island, now in plain view mid-channel in Torres Strait, where I arrived shortly after noon. Here the spray remained over until June 24. Being the only American representative in port, this tarry was imperative, for on the 22nd was the Queen's Diamond Jubilee. The 2 days over were, as sailors say, for coming up. Meanwhile, I spent pleasant days about the island. Mr. Douglas, resident magistrate, invited me on a cruise in his steamer one day, among the islands in Torres Strait. This being a scientific expedition in charge of Professor Mason Bailey, botanist, we rambled over Friday and Saturday Islands, where I got a glimpse of botany. Miss Bailey, the professor's daughter, accompanied the expedition, and told me of many indigenous plants with long names. The 22nd was the great day on Thursday Island, for then we had not only the Jubilee, but a Jubilee with a grand corroboree in it, Mr. Douglas having brought some 400 native warriors and their wives and children across from the mainland to give the celebration the true native touch. For when they do a thing on Thursday Island, they do it with a roar. The corroboree was, at any rate, a howling success. It took place at night, and the performers, painted in fantastic colours, danced or leapt about before a blazing fire. Some were rigged and painted like birds and beasts, in which the emu and kangaroo were well represented. One fellow leapt like a frog. Some had the human skeleton painted on their bodies, while they jumped about threateningly, spear in hand, ready to strike down some imaginary enemy. The kangaroo hopped and danced with natural ease and grace, making a fine figure. All kept time to music, vocal and instrumental, the instruments being bits of wood which they beat one against the other, and saucer-like bones held in the palm of the hands, which they knocked together, making a dull sound. It was a show at once amusing, spectacular, and hideous. I observed that on the day of the Jubilee, no foreign flag was waving in the public grounds, except the Stars and Stripes, which, along with the Union Jack, guarded the gateway, and floated in many places, from the tiniest to the standard size. Speaking to Mr. Douglas, I ventured a remark on this compliment to my country. "Oh," said he, "this is a family affair, and we do not consider the Stars and Stripes a foreign flag." The Spray, of course, flew her best bunting, and hoisted the Jack, as well as her own noble flag, as high as she could. On June 24, the Spray, well fitted in every way, sailed for the long voyage ahead down the Indian Ocean. Mr. Douglas gave her a flag as she was leaving his island. The Spray had now passed nearly all the dangers of the Coral Sea and Torres Strait, which indeed were not a few, and all ahead from this point was plain sailing and a straight course. The trade wind was still blowing fresh, and could be safely counted on now down to the coast of Madagascar, if not beyond that, for it was still early in the season. I had no wish to arrive off the Cape of Good Hope before midsummer, and it was now early winter. I had been off that cape once in July, which was of course midwinter there. The stout ship I then commanded encountered only fierce hurricanes, and she bore them ill. I wished for no winter gales now. It was not that I feared them more, being in the Spray instead of a large ship, but that I preferred fine weather in any case. It is true that one may encounter heavy gales off the Cape of Good Hope at any season of the year, but in the summer they are less frequent and do not continue so long. And so, with time enough before me to admit of a run ashore on the islands en route, I shaped the course now for Keeling Cocos, Atoll Islands, distant 2,700 miles. Taking a departure from Booby Island, which the sloop passed early in the day, I decided to sight Timor on the way, an island of high mountains. Booby Island I had seen before, but only once, however, and that was when in the steamship Souchez, on which I was hove down in a fever. When she steamed along this way, I was well enough to crawl on deck to look at Booby Island. Had I died for it, I would have seen that island. In those days, passing ships landed stores in a cave on the island for shipwrecked and distressed wayfarers. Captain Airy of the Souchez, a good man, sent a boat to the cave with his contribution to the general store. The stores were landed in safety, and the boat returning brought back from the improvised post office there a dozen or more letters, most of them left by whalemen, with the request that the first homeward-bound ship would carry them along and see to their mailing, which had been the custom of this strange postal service for many years. Some of the letters brought back by our boat were directed to New Bedford, and some to Fairhaven, Massachusetts. There is a light today on Booby Island, and regular packet communication with the rest of the world, and the beautiful uncertainty of the fate of letters left there is a thing of the past. I made no call at the little island, but standing close in, exchanged signals with the keeper of the light. Sailing on, the sloop was at once in the Arafura Sea, where for days she sailed in water milky white and green and purple. It was my good fortune to enter the sea on the last quarter of the moon, the advantage being that in the dark nights I witnessed the phosphorescent light effect at night in its greatest splendour. The sea, where the sloop disturbed it, seemed all ablaze, so that by its light I could see the smallest articles on deck, and her wake was a path of fire. On the 25th of June, the sloop was already clear of all shoals and dangers, and was sailing on a smooth sea as steadily as before, but with speed somewhat slackened. I got out the flying jib made at Juan Fernandez, and set it as a spinnaker from the stoutest bamboo that Mrs. Stevenson had given me at Samoa. The spinnaker pulled like a sodger, and the bamboo holding its own, the spray mended her pace. Several pigeons flying across today from Australia toward the islands bent their course over the spray. Smaller birds were seen flying in the opposite direction. In the part of the Arafura that I came to first, where it was shallow, sea snakes writhed about on the surface and tumbled over and over in the waves. As the sloop sailed farther on, where the sea became deep, they disappeared. In the ocean, where the water is blue, not one was ever seen. In the days of serene weather, there was not much to do but to read and take rest on the Spray, to make up as much as possible for the rough time off Cape Horn, which was not yet forgotten, and to forestall the Cape of Good Hope by a store of ease. My sea journal was now much the same from day to day. Something like this of June 26 and 27, for example. June 26. In the morning it is a bit squally. Later in the day, blowing a steady breeze. On the log at noon is 130 miles. Subtract correction for slip, 10 miles. Add for current, 10 miles. Latitude by observation at noon, 10 degrees 23 minutes south. Longitude as per mark on the chart. There wasn't much brain work in that log, I'm sure. June 27 makes a better showing when all is told. First of all today was a flying fish on deck. Fried it in butter. 133 miles on the log. For slip, off, and for current on, as per guess, about equal. Let it go at that. Latitude by observation at noon, 10 degrees 25 minutes south. For several days now the Spray sailed west, on the parallel of 10 degrees 25 minutes south, as true as a hair. If she deviated at all from that, through the day or night, and this may have happened, she was back, strangely enough, at noon, at the same latitude. But the greatest science was in reckoning the longitude. My tin clock and only timepiece had by this time lost its minute hand. But after I boiled her, she told the hours, and that was near enough on a long stretch. On the 2nd of July, the great island of Timor was in view away to the nor'ard. On the following day, I saw Dana Island not far off, and a breeze came up from the land at night, fragrant of the spices or what-not of the coast. On the 11th, with all sail set, and with the spinnaker still abroad, Christmas Island, about noon, came into view, 1 point on the starboard bow. Before night it was abeam, and distant 2.5 miles. The surface of the island appeared evenly rounded from the sea to a considerable height in the centre. In outline, it was as smooth as a fish, and a long ocean swell rolling up broke against the sides where it lay like a monster asleep, motionless on the sea. It seemed to have the proportions of a whale, and as the sloop sailed along its side to the part where the head would be, there was a nostril even, which was a blowhole through a ledge of rock, where every wave that dashed threw up a shaft of water, lifelike and real. It had been a long time since I last saw this island, but I remember my temporary admiration for the captain of the ship I was then in, the Tanjore, when he sang out one morning from the quarterdeck, well aft, "Go aloft there, one of ye, with a pair of eyes, and see Christmas Island." Sure enough, there the island was in sight from the royal yard. Captain M had thus made a great hit, and he never got over it. The chief mate, terror of us ordinaries in the ship, walking never to windward of the captain, now took himself very humbly to leeward altogether. When we arrived at Hong Kong, there was a letter in the ship's mail for me. I was in the boat with the captain some hours while he had it. But do you suppose he could hand a letter to a seaman? No, indeed, not even to an ordinary seaman. When he got to the ship, he gave it to the first mate. The first mate gave it to the second mate, and he laid it meekingly on the capstan head, where I could get it.